It's time for another edition of the Stronger Together podcast with ACSI. I'm Josh Warden. We're coming down the home stretch before the 2026 Rooted Educator Worldview Summit in Colorado Springs in conjunction with the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. In fact, we're going to hear from two speakers, the keynote presenters at the summit here in this podcast, and one of them is with the Colson Center, their resident theologian. In fact, that's Dr. Timothy Padgett. Really excited to share this conversation. He's part of the Colson Center that puts out great content. He's a big part of their Breakpoint podcast. I listen to that one personally, so really excited to share this. He'll talk about the summit, what he's going to talk about, and how Christian educators are part of a greater story. So here is Dr. Timothy Padgett.
We're looking forward to this Rooted conference here in a few weeks. And the importance of going to conferences like that, there's a couple of things. I mean, some of it's big picture, general thing, the same sort of thing you would have at any good conference. It's got to be a good conference. There's bad conferences too. But some of the good things about a good conference is just that community that you get. I think that for a lot of us, in whatever task we're in, whatever role we're playing, the everyday in and out can feel very mundane and can feel like we're not making progress, we're not getting any better, dealing with our students, or in my case, dealing with our audience. It just seems like you're banging your head against the wall sometimes, or that it just seems futile, or maybe there's administrative things. It is sometimes just really nice to be able to get together with colleagues. There is something powerful about that. I could tell you, I go to academic conferences a lot, and some of the fun is getting to go to the lectures of the experts, and they know all these really obscure, fun things that eggheads really like to get into. And that's a lot of fun, absolutely. But so much of it is being there, not with the people that you're sitting under in that context, but the people you're shoulder to shoulder with. People you might not know, people who might be on the other side of the country, thousands of miles apart. But having that community, being able to be there for official breakout sessions and discussion things, or just getting coffee in between sessions, that is invaluable, I think, for anyone, because it helps you to see what you're doing really matters. You're part of a bigger story. And so that's kind of a general thing you'll have at any sort of conference. And I think that specifically at a conference helping Christian educators is for them to remember why they're doing it, that there's something special about what they're doing. I grew up in Nashville, which is big on Christian music stuff, and half the time Christian music is just secular music. Then instead of boyfriend, it says Jesus. Okay, when we do Christian education, that's not what we're doing. That's not the goal. You want to do that, that's fine, but that's not Christian education. Actually, my father, he helped to start the school that I went to from 5th grade through high school. And when he had this stump speech, and he would say, Christian education is not one shepherd plus two shepherds equals three shepherds. That's not what it is. It's not just education with Christian lingo thrown in. It's education keeping in mind the Christian story, the truths of the Bible, and the 2,000 years of Christian reflection. What does it mean when we teach science, when we understand that creation was intentional? God made the world as he intended it to be. That's not even getting into the questions of creation evolution, but that it was intentional. God has something in mind. What does it mean when you teach history to understand that there's a fall, that there's been a breakdown of the fundamental matrix of the universe and humanity? What does it mean in terms of you see the atrocities to understand that God, with Abraham, with Moses, with David, and most of all with Christ, and continue with us, that he is working on redemption? And what does it mean when we see these things and we don't feel like we're getting any better, to know that there is going to be a restoration one day? Keeping those things in mind is, I think, one of the benefits of understanding the Christian education, understanding what it means to think Christianly in everything we do.
That's great. I love having that picture of the biblical worldview integration and weaving that throughout. So that's great. Anything about what you'll be sharing? What do you hope educators come away encouraged by, and what you're hoping that they take away from what you'll get to share there in Colorado Springs? Just, what you're excited to talk about.
Well, actually, you said the word, and the word is hope. I'm talking about hope, but specifically, I'm doing a bit of a compare-contrast between progress and hope. Now, both progress and hope are about moving forward, right? They're kind of like that. They're the expectation of things getting better. But progress, if we want to steal from C.S. Lewis, and everyone must steal from C.S. Lewis in any talk like this, right? He talked about how that progress doesn't mean anything unless you're going in the right direction. If you make progress in the wrong direction, well, that's not actually progress. That is not making things better. And I think a lot of people today have a very progress with a capital P. I mean, progress is good, but we're going to have like almost like scientism is bad, but science is good. Progressism, not progressivism. That's a more complicated thing. But when you talk about progress, it's movement, but there's not really direction. How do you know if you're doing better? How do you know if the improvements you're making are actually improvements? It's just movement. There's no way to tell, to judge, is this educational process actually helping because it's movement without context. Whereas hope has context. Hope requires context. If you think about it, hope requires that something has gone wrong. If you think about 1 Corinthians 13, you don't hope in heaven. You know, these three remain, but the grace of these is love. There, in one sense, there's no hope in heaven because everything will already be there. Well, we're not there yet. We are still in a place where hope is possible and hope is necessary. But hope requires that something is not the way it's supposed to be now. It's not optimism. Optimism is fine. My wife is a very optimistic person, but optimism is not what hope is. Optimism is just expecting that things are going to get better. Hope is a confidence that things are moving there and you have a means of moving in that direction. So if hope entails that recognizing that things are not the way they're supposed to be, it also entails the converse, that there is a way that things are supposed to be. And that's the big difference between hope and progress, because progress has no place for that. Progress is just movement. Progress is just more. What is more about anything if there's no direction to know what you're talking about? So what I hope people take away from my particular talk is this concept of hope, both the philosophical kind of thing, but also the reality of it, of knowing that they're part of this bigger story, of knowing that they're part of a bigger movement. And that gives them confidence on those long days when it's hard to think, how can I keep doing this? How can I keep going? Please give me another cup of coffee so I can show up again and do the next thing. That understanding that you're part of this greater story gives great hope and strength.
I was just reading Mere Christianity, and he talks about a student doing math, or he calls it arithmetic, and it's the student who realizes a mistake and erases it, who's going to end up getting to the destination quicker than just
Absolutely
continuing to plug away.
Well, my thanks to Dr. Timothy Padgett for joining us. Now let's pivot to another one of the keynote presenters at this upcoming Rooted Educator Worldview Summit. And that is Megan Almon, one of the many names at the summit who will be presenting a whole litany that you can see at acsi.org/rooted. See the full list of speakers. But Megan Almon, who's with Stand to Reason, joins us now on the Stronger Together podcast.
It's funny because I feel like this is one of those events where I could learn some things from them. They are on the front lines of what's happening with our young people right now. But I am privileged and humbled to be able to stand before them and encourage them, offer words of encouragement about the Christian worldview, and really just that it's bigger and better and more beautiful than anything the world has to offer.
That's great. How would you say, when you just think about the importance of Christian educators, not just having professional development about classroom control or any just nuts and bolts in education, but specifically a conference for biblical worldview to make sure everything the Christian school is doing is grounded in the most important things? Can you put words to just how critical it is for people to be a part of things like this?
Yeah, I can. First of all, like I said, front lines. Right? These educators are in the classrooms, in the environments where students are day in and day out. And they're not like me. As an itinerant speaker, I fly into an event. I offer words of encouragement, but the hardest part of my job is that I have to leave. These educators are the ones the students come to, apart from their parents, when they have their big questions or their struggles. So not only do they have to be acquainted with, like you said, the nuts and bolts of how to run a classroom environment, of how that fits into the larger school, but bigger than that, my hope is that these educators see and understand that by being grounded in the Christian worldview from the front of a classroom, the way that Christianity has formed them will do so much in terms of teaching their students, not by what is taught by them, although that is vitally important. They got to get the math right and the science right and the English right, and even be able to see how those connect with one another if the truth is one person. Everything flows from that. Not only that, but also what is caught by the students. It's what is taught, that's vitally important, but what is caught is so much more. And for these educators to be able to come together at an event like this one and to be encouraged about the truthfulness of the Christian worldview, the hope that it provides, the way that it informs identity, the various topics that are going to be addressed, they are going to be strengthened to stand even stronger in that most important role of educating the next generation.
When you think about your kind of apologetics offerings, the conferences you've been a part of, chances you have to interact either with students in particular or the educators who will then funnel those apologetic sorts of teachings to their students, what sort of, I don't know if it's particular conversations or topics have you found that have been that resonate most and really get to the heart of, oh wow, students really need to hear this? Or any other particular topics you just love touching on or you've seen make a difference directly or indirectly with students?
There are many. Let me talk about a couple in particular. One is the nature of truth, and particularly moral truth as it relates to truth itself, that we can know and understand what is true, contrary to a world that tells us, well, the truth is just relative. That's up to you to decide either as a society or maybe for yourself as an individual. The air that we breathe tells us that, but the Christian worldview tells us, no, not only is truth knowable and real, it's something that we can align our lives with. And in doing so, we find our true good. We find flourishing. We find all the things that the world tends to promise, but turns up empty. I think that when we start to understand that and have that conversation, it informs our posture. When we understand that the truth of Christianity is an objective reality, not just my truth or my preference, but the fabric of reality is made up of what Christianity says about the world. When we understand that, we become people of confidence. We don't have to know all the answers. And I know for teachers, that's a temptation that they may have. As a speaker or someone who educates, that's a temptation that I have. Our job has never been to know all the answers, but to point to the truthfulness of the Christian worldview, which stands apart from us time and time again. Just in doing that, our confident posture makes a statement to the world around us because we are people who are grounded or rooted, thus such an appropriate name. Other conversations that I have that make an impact, most of what I talk about in apologetics deals with questions about what it means to be human and what it means to be valuable as a human being. And we live at a time and place when those questions have been shoved to the forefront of our discourse. Who am I? Do I matter? What makes me me? So identity questions, all of that. I find that conversations about the image of God, which is the answer that Christianity has to say, grounding both our status and identity as God created us and our value. It's an unspeakable dignity that we have just because we're human. Those things are not only so much more consistent than the way the world tries to tell us that we matter or who the world tries to tell us that we are, but more beautiful. Those conversations lead to gospel conversations most of the time because of how important they are to the individuals that are having them.
That's great. One final question for you as we look forward to the Rooted Summit, the week of June 15th in Colorado Springs. To a certain degree, all the things that Christian schools teach, as we talk about apologetics or culture, whatever it may be, the teachings are always the same because the Bible is the same. But culture changes. Gen Z is living in a different time than 10 years ago, 22 years ago, for that matter. Mm-hmm. Are there any, we could both take it, challenges or also maybe strengths of this generation, ways that they are better set up to impact their fellow students, or again, challenge? I'm sure there's examples of both. Are any things that point out to you that you've noticed, or just ways that you've spoken or taught, ways that educators can realize both the challenges and strengths that this generation of students possess?
Yes, I can speak to those, though I feel like the educators will go, I'm aware of that. This generation, in my experience, particular challenge they have is the amount of information they have access to. That is both a strength and a challenge. It's a challenge because for them, the world holds all the possibilities. What they want to be when they grow up is an overwhelming question to them. So they need more guiding questions that people of wisdom can ask who understand that the basics, the basis and the foundation hasn't changed. Teachers are good at doing that. Who is it that you care about, right? What difference do you want to make? What problem do you want to solve? Might be better suited questions to things like that. Another strength that this generation has is that they are multi-talented, multi-interested because of that information they have access to, and they are like the Duracell batteries that don't die. They have so much energy, and that, when channeled into like really purpose-filled, difference-making opportunities, those students will rise to those occasions and meet those challenges. They just need the encouragement and the equipping to be able to do it. So I find that extremely promising with this generation. They are creative, unlike any generation before them. And so able to address the problems that we have in many different ways. And when fueled by the groundedness, the truth, the rootedness of the Christian worldview, I don't know what can stop them.
I love it. I love that perspective. Well, Megan, thanks for your time today. We're looking forward to the summit, for your presentation, and all the speakers there. It's going to be a great time. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to hear more from Megan and Dr. Padgett and all these great speakers, we hope you can register and join us at the Rooted Educator Worldview Summit, June 15th through the 17th in Colorado Springs. You can visit acsi.org/rooted. Thanks so much for tuning in and for your work in Christ-centered education wherever and whatever that exactly may be. We're pleased that you're joining us along the way right here on the Stronger Together podcast.